There's a lot of them out there.
Hello, everybody.
Are you feeling the girl power in the room?
You know, men have book clubs too, and
Do they?
and guys call up guys and say, "I just read this incredible book. You should read it."
How many guys who are here are in a book club? I can see you without the house lights. Oh, Jonathan, yeah. I don't know.
Even if it's not true, thank you for whatever you just did.
I have to say, I've never, and I mean this not to just be provocative, but also to be provocative, I've never really understood this thing that Franzen has it in for women. Where does it come from? But you have had to answer a lot of questions about that. And apparently you're going to answer one more, right? Tonight.
This is sort of eating the vegetables first, and we'll get to dessert later, right?
We'll see. It might be all vegetables.
My Minnesotan mother taught me how to eat vegetables, and I'll do it all evening if you ask me to. Where does it come from? I don't know. Possibly out of a frustration that I'm not the white male ogre, that it would be so convenient if I were.
No, you're not leaving it there. Who wants to make you out of into the great white male ogre?
You know, I think I don't know, but it's people tell me it happens. Yeah, okay. I should step up my game here and come up with a better answer. But that's, you know, it's I don't read the stuff, so I don't even know what it's based on. But you know, apparently I publish a novel every 5 years, and it sucks the oxygen out of the literary culture. You know, I don't know. It doesn't even compute. So I don't even know how to answer the question, Kerri.
Let me bail you out then.
Okay,
Jonathan,
why don't you answer the question?
What? I'm confused. I did answer the question. I don't really think it applies. And part of the reason is that you really nail the sensibility of female characters. You've written a lot of them. It seems like you understand them.
Well, I try to divide my books equally between male and female characters.
Do you really?
Yes, I do. I always have, as point of view characters. It's been a 50-50 split in all 5 novels. But I can imagine how that might be offensive, because it's like, shouldn't I just be writing about guys? I don't know. I come back to this sense that it's inconvenient that I'm not Philip Roth, or John Updike, or one of those guys. And
one of what guys?
Well, because then you could just say one of those older guys who really had a hard time getting out of the guy perspective, and it was like, shaky going when they did female characters, Roth in particular. Maybe that's it's an intuition that makes it actually worse.
Do you think Roth thinks it was shaky going when he was writing female characters?
He should have. No, I mean, Roth's actually a strange example, because he writes about himself, and he does that, more effulgently than perhaps anyone has ever written about himself. And that's kind of the glory of him. So to fault him for not really being so good at doing other perspectives is to deny the essence of what makes him great.
Don't a lot of readers assume that writers are writing about themselves in some way, shape, or form?
It's a sensible assumption. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
But I have many female parts.
Now we're getting to the good stuff.
Not physically, but No, a personality is a collection of modules. There is no unitary I. I don't believe in a unitary I. And neuroscience, the ultimate authority on such matters, tells us that there is no unitary I. You've got the lizard brain that is making poor decisions in the judgment of the cortex, the not lizard brain part of the brain. I think I've been cursed, but also sort of blessed with like 12 different personality modules, and some of them, some of them are real girls.
Do you know how dull that sounds? Personality modules. I mean, is that really how you think of it?
You were the one who opened the door to process.
Is that really how you think of it? As personality modules, and some of them are girls?
Kinda, yeah.
Say more.
Well, the great subject of modern literature has been the divided self, right? And part of me is this very, very excruciatingly moral Midwestern guy, and part of me is this rage-filled person who wants to act out and break out and do bad things. And I talk to each of those two parts of me on a daily basis. And mostly the nice Midwestern person keeps things down, but when I get tired or angry, other things come out. I mean, it goes... Jekyll and Hyde was an early crude attempt to account for the dividedness of the human self.
Is it just a dramatic description to say rage-filled, or is that really there in you? And are we going to see it tonight?
No, the well-trained Midwestern boy is strictly in charge here. But there's a part of me that would love to not be here, but watching a baseball game, and then there's the part of me that wants nothing more than to be in a big theater with lots of people in it. It's not very complicated stuff, but those selves are also in conflict, and they will frequently make one another miserable. And if you have a whole lot of them, as I seem to, then there's a lot of opportunity for being made miserable, which, if I were not a writer, would be probably I would drink a lot.
And I did offer you a drink before the show.
I noticed that you were having a drink, Kerri.
We could get one for you.
No, because I'm a writer, I don't need one.
Ah, I see. And I'm a journalist, and I do. What would it take to see the rage-filled module of the person? I just want to know what sets that off. Because you seem so tranquil.
Unfairness sets it off. When people are behaving badly, I get upset, and often in very trivial ways. I had a traffic violation in Santa Cruz in February. I rolled through a stop sign, making a right turn. No danger to anyone, I might add. But I was reaching for the radio dial, and the eyes flicked up on the patrol car sitting right there. I was given a ticket. So as not to get points on my license, I went to traffic school online.
Wow.
6 hours of traffic school. I took a little fragment of somebody else's drug prescription. No need to say what that prescription was. And I did my 6-hour traffic school. Like this. For the radio audience, I was just making a kind of crazed meth head sort of expression. And At one point, I was invited to take a little test about whether I showed symptoms of road rage. And there were 12 questions, and trying to be scrupulously fair, I believe I said yes to 7 or 8 of them, and I was told that 3 or more meant you were prone to road rage. And it's, of course, what angers me is, well, the stupidity of traffic lights, the kind of the vexed nature of the traffic lights that they will turn red when I don't want them to. But also, of course, people texting while driving and going 50 miles an hour in the passing lane on a freeway. This is bad, and I get angry at them. And so I actually have modified my behavior. It gave some tips to those of us who are prone to road rage. I recommend traffic school, actually.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised.
And one of the tips was leave a little earlier.
Yeah. I'm surprised if you answered 8 of those questions on road rage as yes, that they didn't show up at your door and seize your license right there. You're a danger.
No longer.
No longer. After traffic school.
I now have road empathy.
How's that working for you?
Actually, it's great, because who likes to be pissed off while they're driving?
Right. It's not going to get you there any faster. Sometimes
it will a little bit.
So you can feel since we're talking about anger, you can feel that, and it's more than simmering anger in the early exchange between mother and daughter, between Pip and her mother. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how you understand that, and then I think you're going to read a little bit from that dialogue. But, it's the passive-aggressive stuff that you've got to a T. And mothers and daughters get this, right? Yeah, see? Uh-huh. How'd you nail it? How'd you know it? Because I think it's different between mothers and daughters than fathers and sons. This is my theory.
I've known mothers and daughters.
But you haven't been one.
No, but that's the thing. And the person who plays Hamlet was never Hamlet either. It's part of the brief of being a novelist. You observe and you kind of, in fact, this is how empathy works. You see other people living, engaging in a scene, and you think, and you're trying to understand it. You're trying to make sense of it. Why are they doing these things? And you look into yourself and you try to put yourself in one person's position, the other person's position, and you call to mind. It's very like method acting, actually, in a way. You find analogous feelings in oneself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also it's, long though a novel is, it's minuscule, school, compared to reality. And so you don't actually have to really know what it's like. You only have to know enough how it's like and create symbols and suggestive words on the page that convey the impression. And you can do that sort of from the outside. So I actually don't even know, I don't have to know how it feels to be a mother or a daughter trying to deal with a difficult mother.
Yeah.
I only have to have observed it and written it down.
Let me ask you this before you read that. I think the last time you were here for Freedom, we talked about that passive-aggressive. I'm trying to remember if we talked about whether that's kind of a Midwestern thing or what it is.
I don't think it's simply a Midwestern thing.
I feel like I found it in spades when I moved to Minnesota.
You call it passive aggression. We call it politeness.
I see. They're not the same.
It's in the eye of the beholder, Kerri. So shall I read this thing?
I guess.
Okay, so Kerri's picked out some passages to read that I don't get to read otherwise, which is sort of fun, but also problematic in that I haven't practiced them. Nevertheless, one of the main characters of the book, Pip, is talking to her mother. Her mother has been complaining about her drooping eyelid. There's a little spasm in her eyelid, which she thinks might be Bell's palsy. It's been going on for a few hours. And actually, at the time of this conversation, has stopped. Anyway, so Pip says, have you given any thought to how you want to not celebrate your not birthday? Frankly, I'd like to stay in bed all day with the covers over my head. I don't need a not birthday to remind me I'm getting older. My eyelid is doing a very good job of that already. Why don't I make you a cake and I'll come down and we can eat it? You sound sort of more depressed than usual. I'm not depressed when I see you. Ha! Too bad I'm not available in pill form. Could you handle a cake made with stevia? I don't know. Stevia does something funny to the chemistry of my mouth. There's no fooling a taste bud in my experience. Sugar has an aftertaste too, Pip said, although she knew that argument was futile. Sugar has a sour aftertaste that taste bud has no problem with because it's built to report sourness without dwelling on it. The taste bud doesn't have to spend 5 hours registering strangeness, which is what happened to me the one time I drank a stevia drink. But I'm saying the sourness does linger. There's something very wrong when a taste bud is still reporting strangeness 5 hours after you had a sweetened drink. Do you know that if you smoke crystal meth even once, your entire brain chemistry is altered for the rest of your life? That's what stevia tastes like to me. I'm not sitting here puffing on a meth stem, if that's what you're trying to say. I'm saying I don't need a cake. No, I'll find a different kind of cake. I'm sorry I suggested a kind that's poison to you. I didn't say it was poison. It's simply that stevia does something funny to your mouth chemistry, yeah. Pussycat, I'll eat whatever kind of cake you bring me. Refined sugar won't kill me. I didn't mean to upset you. Sweetheart, please. No phone call was complete before each had made the other wretched. The problem, as Pip saw it, the essence of the handicap she lived with, the presumable cause of her inability to be effective at anything, was that she loved her mother, pitied her, suffered with her, warmed to the sound of her voice, felt an unsettling kind of non-sexual attraction to her body, was solicitous even of her mouth chemistry, wished her greater happiness, hated upsetting her, found her dear. This was the massive block of granite at the center of her life, the source of all the anger and sarcasm that she directed not only at her mother, but more and more self-defeatingly of late, at less appropriate objects. When Pip got angry, it wasn't really at her mother, but at the granite block.
Jonathan Franzen on the stage of the Fitzgerald Theater for the launch of Talking Volumes. The new novel is called Purity. I can't believe no one's asked you to read that before. It's for good.
Normally, I'm not up with practiced professional interviewers like this.
Ah, that's the difference. What if I said that I thought Annabelle was a... So this word came to mind, harridan.
Harridan. Yes, she might have been what people once called a harridan.
Yeah. You said that like you were going to spell it in a spelling bee.
How the heck do you spell it?
Harridan. Yeah, okay.
I was trying to establish a bond with the
I
audience.
see. You wanted people to shout it out. Sorry. Yeah.
She's a very principled person. with elements of possible, a little bit of a borderline personality. We're talking about late in the book, there's a long section about a marriage. Mm-hmm. That's Annabelle. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's two kids who get together and kind of vow eternal love. And it's a very intense relationship, and she burns with righteous fervor. And I think it's the righteous fervor that makes her not quite a harridan.
Okay.
She's not just a pissy person. She has a really, really strong sense of moral purity.
More so than just about anybody else she surrounds herself with.
Totally, yes. And she has a hard time keeping friends.
Yes. Because who wants to be around people like that?
Who does? Well, that long section is narrated by a young man who does. Who thinks she's going to rescue him in some way, and he's going to rescue her. And yeah, she's poorly behaved, and she's very demanding. She throws scenes if she doesn't get what she wants, but she's not spoiled. Mm-hmm. It's that what she wants is this radical equality, this radical merging of souls, and and total respect for her own sphere. It all sort of makes sense. I guess it's hard to call her a harridan just because we see a lot of her, and somewhat to my surprise, I found her to be arguably the most sympathetic character in the book.
That's true.
She can't help what she is, and there's something totally quixotic and wrong-headed about trying to live a life all your life never being morally in the wrong, ever. That's a crazy thing to do, and yet she's willing to pay the price to do it.
You know, it's interesting that
we're talking a little vaguely because we don't want to give too much of the story away.
Understood. It's interesting that you said she's not spoiled. Like, that is an important part of understanding her personality, and that's true.
Right. She in fact rejects her privilege.
Right.
She's the daughter of a very wealthy man.
Right.
Whom she hates because he is morally impure, among other reasons.
Do you think she's, for all the reasons that you've just described, sympathetic in a way that Andreas couldn't be?
I find them all sympathetic.
Do you?
So yeah, how could I write them? How could I write them if I didn't? Poor Andreas.
Did you say poor Andreas?
Yeah, poor Andreas. I think it's safe to say he didn't have the happiest childhood. He didn't have the easiest parents. He is this East German figure, a so-called dissident who becomes an internet personality, a famous internet personality for his exposure of corporate and governmental secrets. And I think he's somewhat mentally ill. And don't you have sympathy for people who are mentally ill? It's a terrible thing.
Oh, well, no. What am I going to say to that?
So part of him is really trying to be good. He's trying all his life to be good.
So he reflects at one point, his life seemed to him a long war between two sides of him. The sick side that he had from his mother, the scrupled side that he had from a non-genetic father. But he feared that at base he was all Katya, his mother. At what age do you think you start to get that kind of perspective on your parents and yourself?
Probably in your early 20s you can start. I think he's 28 when he has that particular thought. And note that he's certain that he's at base all Katya. He's afraid. That's what he's afraid of becoming. He's afraid of becoming a nut like his mom. And, I find that poignant, that someone has a real terrible demon. I mean, there's a really sick side of him, really, what could be more poignant than the valiant Jekyll-like person fighting that demon that he knows is in him? He's smart enough to recognize he's all over it, and he can't get rid of it. I find that sympathetic.
We are kind of back to the personality modules. I don't know that he fights it as ferociously as he could.
Well, he as ferociously as he could. Well,
to be better.
We're into deep realms of philosophy here.
Let's go with it.
No, I'm unschooled in philosophy, I'm afraid, beyond college. But he doesn't fight hard enough. Well, most people don't, actually. A lot of people do a lot of bad things, and most of them, when they're their better selves, are sorry about it. That was the theme of Dead Man Walking, for example. Can't judge a person by their worst moment. But nonetheless, people do bad things, and you could say of each of them, they should have tried harder not to do those bad things. Mm-hmm. But they do, and most people do. So I'm not sure that is a particularly salient, villainous feature of Andreas.
Do you really think most people don't try to do the right thing? I don't.
The question was whether they try hard enough.
Try hard enough.
And judging from all the bad things people do, obviously they don't try hard enough for it. They wouldn't be doing these bad things.
How about all the good things that people do?
Well, Andreas does good things. I refer you to the epigraph of the book, which is people trying to do bad and ending up creating good. So that's the other thing, is we don't necessarily know what good and bad is. I mean, there are certain things that are obviously bad. But Andreas, perhaps you read in the New Yorker, he kills a man. Not good, and yet sick dude. Talk about a guy who's not trying very hard not to do bad things. Yeah. He tries to save a young woman's life, basically, by killing the brute who's been abusing her. Is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing?
Yeah.
I think it's a little complicated, actually. He never gets over it. He feels guilty about it all his life. Part of him does. Part of him's super happy he did it. So I think these things are actually complicated if you look at them, and I think the novel is classically the space in which you are allowed to examine conventional ideas of what's right and what's wrong. That is literary fiction. A lot of genre fiction kind of depends on, because you're reading it for relaxation, you don't actually want to have it problematized after a long day at work. You want bad people to be bad and good people to be good. But if you're in a book group,
as they are,
or are one of those unlucky/lucky people who have no choice but to read, and want the hard stuff, want the cleaner drugs, then sometimes you'll be up for that, and that's I'm writing for the audience that wants things not to be simple. So I'll just go back and say that I had tremendous sympathy for Andreas. I think I loved him more than any of the other characters.
Oh, wow. Why'd you say for the lucky, unlucky people who have to read?
Well, it's complicated going through life wanting to say in almost every situation, it's not that simple. When everyone shouting on the internet, on cable TV, in the lunchroom is making everything super simple. You know, it's a person could become enraged by the oversimplification of things that really, if you examine them a little more carefully and then with some nuance, are not at all simple. So it's kind of a curse for that reader, but it also means that I think you're lucky, and I think it means you're lucky because it means you can afford to entertain moral shades of gray.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, it is a privilege. And I don't denigrate anyone for reading any kind of fiction. And if it's morally simplistic, that's fine, that's your choice. And I don't judge you for it. And in fact, I don't think anyone should, because it's a privilege to be able to entertain the harder stuff.
You know, when I read back some interviews that you've done over, I don't know, like the last decade, you say that a lot.
I said that once.
No, you've said it more than once, and I wonder why.
No, I said it at Butler University. I know exactly the interview you're thinking of.
You said that in an interview with a journalist.
I thought I was going to get away with repeating something I remember really saying once, maybe twice about the privilege.
Oh, maybe twice. Okay. So why do you feel like you kind of have to state that? Do you think because people think, well, if I don't read your kind of fiction, then I'm not reading worthy fiction? And you want to assure them that that is not how you feel?
I do want to assure them that because there was a time when I think, in a way that was very painful to me, mischaracterized as somebody who was contemptuous of a certain kind of reader, and I never was. And so, yeah, there's a certain impulse to stress that because people who haven't been reading my interviews continue to think that somehow I am upholding some ivory tower of literary purity and must, we have to beat back the unwashed masses. And that's just it's pretty much the opposite of how I see it. There's a diaspora of literary readers, and they find their ways to each other, sometimes in book groups, and sometimes, actually in the prison library. Seriously, they're widely spread out. That's not a citadel in any sense, and the person who can actually. The person who can sit in prison and read complicated fiction is probably not doing very well out in the yard, but is in some sense blessed because you can kind of step back and make narrative sense of this terrible thing that has happened to your life. And I think those are the lucky inmates. And they know it.
I also feel like we move in and out of that literary diaspora that you talk about.
Exactly.
Right?
That's right. No, I mean, and there's a similar thing. Not everyone is up for watching Breaking Bad or a Breaking Bad-like show, although it's almost sui generis. It's hard to say that it's. I mean, in terms of its moral complexity, it's really, really almost in a class of its own. Sometimes you just want to watch something else, something simpler, like a Law and Order. Jack McCoy, he's a good guy fighting for justice. And yes, maybe he drinks a little too much, and yes, he's had some flings with ADAs in the past. And maybe hasn't treated them that well, but basically he's a fantastic guy, played by Sam Waterston, and that's what you want. So we slide into that, but sometimes you want to watch, The Killing, or one of these more complicated shows.
Yeah. What do you watch when you're just, I don't want any more complexity in my day today?
Football. It's very simple. I want the Seahawks to lose. Pete Carroll got some good press a week or two ago for his new zen, mellow, no yelling approach to coaching, and I pointedly did not read that because it helps me to think of Pete Carroll as the worst guy in the NFL.
Now the rage comes out.
No, it's not really rage. It's just that it gives, there's something to root for. You build these things up. You don't actually want to know what he's really like. Which kind of goes back to that, you don't really, people who think I'm some, I don't know, like I'm stifling the writing of women in America or whatever it is I'm supposedly doing, they don't want to know who I really am because it's not useful, because that's their football.
I want to ask you about...
If you know what I mean.
Why don't we read the excerpt, and then I can ask you what I was thinking about.
This is another Kerri chosen excerpt.
All right. Why are you saying that so declaratively?
We've talked about both characters who are in this scene. Pip has gone to Bolivia to work for Andreas. The tormented but deeply sympathetic Andreas. He's kind of the charismatic leader of this cult-like thing that's not really a cult, called the Sunlight Project. And there's a kind of an entry interview where he's going to determine what she does for the cult that's not a cult. Do you want to, and really, I think the only thing you need to know is that Pip has spent a couple of weeks enjoying the smells of this amazing place in Bolivia. And I guess it might also help to know that all the other interns are much prettier than she is. Do you want to be a researcher? There's a lot you could learn from Willow. She's fantastic at finding things. Willow doesn't like me. Actually, nobody here much likes me except Colleen. I don't believe that. Apparently, I'm too sarcastic. I wrinkle my nose at the Kool-Aid. I also talk about smell too much. Nobody here has ill intentions. Every person here is extraordinary in some way. That's the first actually creepy thing you've said to me. How so? If I were in charge of your image management, I'd hire some fat people, some ugly people. I wouldn't set up camp in the most beautiful valley on earth. It gives me the creeps, all this beauty. It makes me not like you. Andreas stiffened. Well, we can't have that, can we? Well, or maybe we can. Maybe not liking you is the way I can be helpful. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person who'd be creeped out by the scene here. Didn't you tell me you wanted me to help you understand how the world sees you? I can be your personal disliker. I have some real skills in that line. It's funny, he said. The more you dislike me, the more I like you. I got that from my last boss, too. There are no bosses here. Oh, please. He laughed. You're right, I'm the boss. Well, and as long as we're being honest, I never paid much attention to your project. What the world thinks of it is your problem, not mine. I mean, it's nice you wanted me here, but the main reason I came is because Annegret said you could help me answer my questions. Who's her father is her big question. You don't admire the project even a little bit? Maybe I don't understand it yet. I'm sure it's very admirable, but some of your leaks are so small, it's almost like those revenge on the cheating boyfriend websites. That's a bit harsh, don't you think? We were just discussing a new upload, Australian government emails on the subject of endangered species, wallabies, parrots, how to pretend to care about protecting them while they sell them out to ranchers and hunters and mining interests. This is not a trivial leak, but the only way we get it, the only way we remain relevant, is by delivering the goods every day. We have to do the small things to get the big things. I agree. It's too bad about the endangered animals of Australia, Pip said, but I'm still smelling something else. This nose of yours, what exactly is it telling you? She thought before she answered. She didn't really want to be his personal disliker. She could see what a tiring and alienating job it would be. She'd come to Bolivia willing to admire the project. It was mainly the chokingly high admiration levels of the other interns that made her hostile. And yet her hostility did help her stand out from the crowd. It could be a way to gratify her own miserable little ego and be liked by him. There was this place, she said, this dairy called Moonglow Dairy near where I lived when I was growing up. I guess it was a real dairy because they had a lot of cows, but their real money didn't come from selling milk. It came from selling high-quality manure to organic farmers. It was a shit factory pretending to be a milk factory. Andreas smiled. I don't like where you're going with this. Well, you say you're about citizen journalism. You're supposedly in the business of leaks. But isn't your real business cow manure? I was going to say fame and adulation. The product is you.
Wasn't that good? Isn't that a good excerpt?
It's...
Before you read that excerpt, you made it clear that it is not a cult that Andreas Wolff has created there. But there is a kind of cult of personality going on there, right?
Yes. No, it's... Yeah, Annegret was mentioned. Her boyfriend said it's a cult of personality, and yeah, I think he's right.
Do you...
He's a very charismatic figure.
Do you feel like you've ever gotten a glimpse of what that's like in your own experience? Here's why I ask. Cover of Time magazine last time, declared like America's novelist. Lots of adulation, lots of book sales. I just want to know if you,
I think kind of cover of Time magazine disqualifies you prima facie from cult status.
Why?
I mean, really, well, certainly if you go to the rock world, I mean, a cult act, they're not gonna get to that level of mainstream acceptance. And the minute they do, the cult turns against them. So that's part of it. And yeah, no one's burning candles in front of that cover. Except maybe my agent.
Yeah.
No, no, I don't feel that, actually. Someone came to my door this summer. I was signing sheets to be bound into copies of the British edition of Purity, and it was a Sunday morning, 11 o'clock, and this tall kid, maybe 24, there, just wanted to shake my hand. Mm. He was wearing an Old Man in the Sea t-shirt. And he had a line from John Keats tattooed on his forearm. He seemed like a very nice guy, and he said quite seriously, it's a little too easy to find you. My friend and I had heard you were in town, and all we had to do was go down to the county records office. Easy, right?
Yeah.
One guy with a little boundary issue doesn't make a cult.
It was. I didn't say it was a cult. I said
a little of that phenomenon. Not
yeah,
really. I just feel like I'm too old. I'm too white. I'm too. I do all this nonfiction, which is really quite responsible.
Yeah, the journalism.
The journalism and the essays, and I unpack it. I don't hide. There's no man behind the curtain. The levers are. I make a point of showing people the levers, and I think that's all. I just don't think I have had any experience of that. The fact that I told a little story about the guy with the Keats tattoo means these things don't happen.
What do you mean you make a point of showing
I make a
people
point
the
of
levers?
Well, like, man, if you want to torpedo yourself as a cult novelist, do a long essay for Harper's Magazine about who reads literary fiction. No writer wants to think about who's reading the stuff. And many will claim never to consider the audience. And that's kind of, again, the cult novelist is paying no attention, or says he or she is paying no attention to what the audience is saying about him or her. But I actually thought it was interesting, and I wanted to know who exactly are we writing for? What is that audience like? I talked to a social scientist about the audience for literary fiction, which is like as uncool as you can possibly get, I think, as a fiction writer.
Why did you?
And she was great, and it changed my life, what she said.
Why?
Because she'd done the research. She knew. She had the answers. Many of the kinds of people she talked to are in the audience tonight. One of them is sitting on stage here. She had it. Maybe two of them. Sorry.
I was going to be. Read the book. Read literary fiction. What were you saying?
I know, but you're a professional reader of literary fiction, so
my gosh, that's so unfair.
No, but it's no. But I'm
it's
saying
never just work.
Shh.
That's the first time that's ever happened.
Kerri, I didn't say it was just work. I didn't say you don't love what you do. I was saying that she was. I don't think you are one of the kinds of people she interviewed.
What kinds of people did she interview?
She stopped people in airports. Her name is Shirley Bryce Heath. She's an incredibly smart person, may have retired, but taught at Stanford for a long time, had a MacArthur. She stopped people in airports. She'd see them reading what was then called trade paperback fiction. Now everything is trade paperback, so it's no longer such a helpful distinction. But she'd look for literary novels in airports, and then she said, "Can I talk to you for a few minutes?" She rode buses and did this. She rode buses in poor neighborhoods and wealthy neighborhoods. She rode subways. She talked to writer after writer after writer. That's how I met her. And she did this for like 10 or 15 years and assembled this enormous body of information. And she discovered that there's several kinds of readers, but the way she accounted for it was in terms of a community. And that it's a weird community in that there are people in it who lived 300 or 400 years ago, because the people who are alive participating in the community of books are still in some sort of relation to the dead writer. They feel, through the magic of print on a page, they are experiencing, they're in some kind of close commune with Jane Austen or with Tolstoy, which is what happens when you get drawn into something. Suddenly you're in somebody else's dream, and that and the community way of talking about it, as opposed to some sort of presumed audience that you're trying to encourage to read because reading is good for you, or some kind of dumb audience that you're trying to play tricks on or hector into better political views or whatever. This notion that every readers and writers are all sort of participating in this thing was helpful.
How did it, you said it changed your life. How?
I stopped imagining that there was such a thing as writing for the mainstream.
And why was that so influential?
Because it hadn't occurred to me that readers might be friends, and that, or even to think of myself as a reader, and to think of what I might want as a reader. And it's tricky. It was tricky to go out and write this essay because it's a fine line, and in fact, some wag in England described it as market research for my next novel. That whole essay, because it seems like, oh well, you are getting to know better who you are writing for, which isn't that what Kellogg's cereal is doing too. So to feel like I was doing this because I was participating in a community and trying to bring what I had to that table, and because people want good books, they want to read something, and to understand it that way as more of a gift and less of a kind of preaching from my superior wisdom and knowledge, that kind of changed my life. It did.
You said because it lets you imagine readers or know that readers were friends.
Yeah.
I mean, before that, understanding
Just didn't think about it. And to the extent that I did, I sort of assumed they were dumb.
that readers were dumb?
Yeah, and that they needed to be enlightened. That was sort of the,
Murmur. They didn't
Well,
like
right.
that.
Well, neither did the American public like my first two novels very much. because I thought I was smarter, and I realized, it was around the time I was learning in many ways that I was not so smart.
How else?
Life does that to you in your 30s, or if not sooner. It teaches you how stupid you've been, and so yeah. An awkward silence fell.
No, because you just wrapped that up really fast. So you began to understand that there was not some kind of didn't need to be an adversarial relationship between you and the readers who wanted to feel in some kind of community with you.
I think that's approximately right. Yes, that it was not an adversarial relationship. That it was we were all part of the same diaspora.
The other thing I'm interested in is when you talked about the community feeling this affinity with a dead writer, if now that that's kind of been defined, you understand a relationship with a dead writer that you have better.
Yes. It's weird. I feel I know more about Christina Stead than I do many quite good friends of mine, because those good friends are not writers. And I feel like I've been in Christina Stead's head because I've read The Man Who Loved Children 3 or 4 times. And that there's a very special thing that happens mind to mind through the magic of print and the magic of narrative. I've stunned Kerri with the abstractness and possible, of these assertions.
You said...
You're giving me the funniest look, I have to say.
I thought you were going to say more.
No.
And you can.
No, I don't want to go on and on about it.
Who are you reading right now?
Who am I reading right now? Actually, I am reading Nell Zink's new novel in manuscript, and I'm finally reading Elena Ferrante. Because people have been, suddenly she's on fire. Suddenly everyone's talking about Ferrante, and now I can't be cool and talk about her the way I could have 2 years ago, when my really good reader friends, some of them male, were saying, I read this book and I loved it and I want you to read it.
Yeah.
Because I was busy. I was writing this thing, so I'm catching up.
Yeah. Are you just on the first novel?
I'm actually reading the Neapolitan novel, so I'm reading My Brilliant Friend. I'm nearly done with it, and it really is excellent.
Who do you think she is?
I don't know. The Italians, in their genuinely sexist way, apparently are speculating that she's a man.
Oh.
I know. Really?
No.
Yes.
No way.
I don't think so. I agree.
Why don't you think so?
Because that's a very dangerous question disguised as an easy question, isn't it?
And I'm so glad and we got here.
I'm so glad I realized it was a dangerous question before I blundered in.
Darn it all. Say what you were going to say.
I would say it's actually sexist to not, given that this is a completely anonymous writer, I would say it's somewhat sexist not to allow at least the possibility that it is a man. That what? A man can't do that. A man can't imagine what a woman is like, and a woman can't imagine what a man is like. Nevertheless, the probability seems low that a guy, and there are many wonderful Italian men, but I'm just going to go on and say it, that an Italian man could describe with such incredible invention and intricacy and intimacy an amazing complex friendship between two women.
So true.
It seems unlikely, but I would not want to. Besides, the man could step forward and then we would all look like idiots if we hadn't said at least it's theoretically possible.
Remember at the beginning when I said, but you haven't been a mother and you haven't been a daughter, and you said, I don't have to have.
Exactly. This could be one of those guys, but why would he do that? Why would he make himself Elena Ferrante and write all these books? It just doesn't make any sense. Whereas if you read her Paris Review interview, which is really outstanding, super smart and really, really articulate on why she guards her privacy. She's a she, I'm pretty sure. And I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that I'm really looking forward to the last of the 5 Patrick Melrose novels by Edward St. Aubyn. He's not widely enough known in the U.S., but he may be the best thing going in British literature right now. Edward St. Aubyn. He's very posh, and the Patrick Melrose novels are quite psychologically violent, and yet they're fantastic. So that's what I'm reading now.
What do you think about one last excerpt? And
this is a JF chosen excerpt.
Ah, yes, and it will be so much more pertinent, I think.
No, in fact not. In fact not. It's just something that I've wanted to try reading, and there's no way I can read it doesn't work in a 20-minute reading. So my favorite of the female characters is this investigative journalist, Lila, who has a section to herself.
Me too. I just had to say that. So good.
Lot to like about Lila, and this is kind of indirect third-person discourse. She's investigating a missing nuclear weapon. And she's gone to Amarillo, Texas, and she's talking to a young woman named Felicia Babcock. And you may not need to know much more than that, but we're going to hear a little bit in third person from Felicia Babcock. On the night of July 3, coming home late from drinking with her girlfriends, she found Cody, her boyfriend, waiting for her on the front steps. He said he had another present for her. He took her around to the backyard where something big and cylindrical was lying on a blanket. Cody said it was a fully armed B-61 thermonuclear warhead. And what did she think of that? Well, she was afraid, was what? Cody said, I want you to touch it. I want you to get buck naked and lay on it, and then I'm going to do you like you've never been done in your whole life. She hedged by saying she didn't want to get radiation poisoning or whatnot. Cody said the warhead was totally safe to handle and be around. He made her touch it with her hand and explained to her about 1-point safety and permission action links. It was the usual all-hat routine, talking about stuff he didn't really understand and had nothing to do with, except this time there was an actual thermonuclear warhead on a blanket in his yard. And I know how to set it off, he said. You do not, Felicia said. There's a way if you got the codes and I got the codes. I can wipe old Amarillo right off the map, right now. Why would you do that? Felicia wanted to know. She half believed him and 2/3 didn't. Thank you. To make you see how much I love you, Cody said. Felicia said she didn't see the connection between loving her and blowing up Amarillo. Sorry.
For the radio audience, Jonathan is
It's
laughing
terrible.
at his own.
If I'd gotten to practice it just once, I wouldn't have done that. It's so gauche. Sorry. She thought that conceivably by saying this, by buying time, she was saving tens of thousands of innocent Amarillo lives. Her own not least among them. She was listening out of one ear for police sirens. Cody then assured her that he wasn't going to do it. He just wanted her to know that he could do it. He, Cody Flaner, he wanted her to feel the kind of power he had at his disposal. He wanted her to take off all her clothes and put her arms around the bomb and stick her little tail up in the air for him. Didn't the bomb's terrible, dangerous power make her want that? It did, actually, when he put it like that. She went ahead and did what he said, and they hadn't had such a good time since before he'd surprised her by moving out on his wife. She wasn't very happy about that. To be that close to so much potential death and devastation, to have her sweaty skin against the cool skin of a death bomb, to imagine the whole city going up in a mushroom cloud when she orgasmed, it was pretty great, she had to say. At the same time, it was obviously a one-night-only thing. Either Cody would be hauled off to jail, or he'd have to take the B-61 back to where it belonged. So sorry, it's so unprofessional, it's terrible. I love St. Paul. Thank you. Not quite done, though. Or he'd have to take the B-61 back to where it belonged, and that would be the end of them having orgasmic sex with her face mashed up against the casing of a 300-kiloton death bomb. To enjoy it while it lasted, they went at it a second time. Cody got her all wound up, but afterwards she felt sad for him. He wasn't very bright, and she'd already made up her mind to go with his friend Kyle. Thank you.
Good. So good. Who wants to bet that that doesn't get in the radio broadcast? Or does it? You'll have to listen to find out.